Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Uchenna Uzo. I'm the Director of MBA programs at Lagos Business School, and I'm delighted to be the moderator of today's event, where we'll be discussing customer engagement in a pandemic, looking at tools, channels, and needs. I think this is a very important topic. You will all agree with me, considering how consumer behavior has been changing. Because of the economic downturn, we are seeing customers becoming more fickle with a lower willingness to pay, a lower ability to pay. Their preferences are shifting. Their loyalty towards brands are also shifting. And what this means is that we need to be creative and innovative in thinking about the best way to engage them. And so engagement is really, at the end of the day, thinking about how to be close or closer to the customer in this difficult time. And that closeness in itself can be a great way of delivering value, which is really needed at this time. And to discuss this topic of today, we have a number of distinguished panel members. I'll start by introducing Dr. Tayo Otubanjo, who is a senior lecturer of marketing at Lagos Business School. Tayo, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all.
Thank you. Dr. Ogechi Adeola, Associate Professor of Marketing at Lagos Business School.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. And Mrs. Vanessa Burgal, Lecturer of Lagos Business School.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Uchenna.
I'm Professor Louis Nzegu, all the way from the United States, the University of Wisconsin. Prof, you're welcome.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. So to begin, we'll mute our mics, and then we would unmute when we need to speak. So I think the first issue really is about looking at engagement strategies. This is something that is very important at this time. And would like to ask Tayo to tell us a bit about, give us your perspective. What do you think companies or marketers or salespeople need to do to innovatively engage customers on digital platforms at this time, during and after the coronavirus pandemic?
Okay, so thank you very much indeed. But before I answer your question, please permit me to simplify the concept of customer engagement. For me, when you say customer engagement, you are simply talking about a variety of activities that business organizations undertake in the process of connecting either functionally or emotionally with customers through a variety of online and offline channels. Now, the key word here is connecting emotionally or functionally or a combination of both. So back to your question, which is how should business organizations connect with customers during and post-COVID-19? A variety of ways. And I'm going to share just a few of them with you. The first one is that business organizations or brand managers, entrepreneurs or brand owners must be prepared to develop and syndicate content that express the value of their brands. At this point in time, you will agree with me that customers are stuck at home. They all have nowhere to go. As such, they'll be looking for content to consume to pass time. Therefore, my advice is it's important for business organizations to create content that revolve around their brand, especially how this content benefits, especially how this benefits the customers. Let me bring to life what I'm talking about. Recently, Nike introduced the Nike Training Club app, which streams fitness videos across the world. Now, by streaming fitness videos, Nike is making an attempt to connect with customers using the brand value of the brand, which is fitness. Let me make another point on how customers, on how business organizations can connect with customers. Now, it's important for business organizations to excite the customer at this point in time by creating online activities. Like I said to you before, just a minute ago, a lot of customers are at home, stuck at home, they are bored as a result of the shutdown. Now, customers miss a lot of their colleagues at work. They miss the beautiful ambience of their offices and their general way of life. My belief is that this is the time to excite customers by introducing a variety of online activities, such as contests and discourses. For instance, to bring to life what I'm talking about, First Bank, MTN, and a good number of other companies, as we speak, are exciting customers through digital channels by asking them what they miss about their offices, what they miss about their lives, the things that they will never take for granted again. And by creating these discourses online, First Bank and so many other companies are making the effort to connect with the customers. The third point I would like to make is the need for organizations to demonstrate empathy and humanize their brand, give their brand a human face. Most businesses, a lot of SMEs right now are already destroyed. A lot of businesses are destroyed, and some of them may never recover. Now, a lot of people too have lost their jobs. This is the time for business organizations to show empathy, to show they care, to show compassion. First Bank, Access Bank, GTB, numerous other financial institutions are already demonstrating compassion. They are already demonstrating empathy by giving a 90-day grace period for repayment on loans. That is a sure way of demonstrating empathy. A lot of organizations, a lot of financial institutions, not just in Nigeria, but across the world are already doing it. You may say, oh, some of us may be skeptical about this and then say, oh, it's a CBN policy that is driving this policy, that is a CBN directive that is driving this policy. In the United States, an auto company which we all know, which we call Hyundai, but perhaps perhaps in the United States, they call Hyundai. So Hyundai or Hyundai is demonstrating empathy also by creating a system that allows customers to delay payments up to 6 months, payments on their cars up to 6 months, should they lose their jobs as a result of COVID-19. And after 6 months, if they're unable to pay, Hyundai or Hyundai is prepared to have the car back. So these are just some of the strategies or some of the things that business organizations can do. If given the time, I will talk more. I'll lay out, I'll marshal out more points. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Tayo. I mean, it's very important what you've said about demonstrating empathy, compassion, understanding, crafting content that speaks about brand values, and putting together online activities that show that we care. I think this is really very important. And so building on this, let's look a bit at channels that are required to drive this engagement. Vanessa, how can digital channels be used during and after the coronavirus pandemic to ensure that there's more loyalty and patronage from the point of view?
Thank you, Uchenna. Very interesting question. So to really ensure loyalty from our key consumers and key clients, the first point and really the starting point is really to focus on understanding the consumer, understanding our clients, how are they reacting at the moment to the lockdown, and also what do we think or how do we think they will react after the lockdown, so short term, but also on a long-term basis. So why do we need to understand the consumer? We really need to identify their needs, their problems, their requests, what are they going through with this situation. This will help us define afterwards our strategies. So at the moment, things are changing for them on a very tough way. So we really need to, continue monitoring and analyzing what something we used to do already, but more in depth. So we have tools, as you said, we have tools, we have channels. It's not about reinventing the wheel. We have those tools already. So as you know, many of you have websites. You are using Google Analytics to follow, for instance, the consumer behavior online. So these are tools that many of you know already, but this is about following what they're doing. But let's see also what are the tools that you know already to help you, connect with this consumer, as Tayo was mentioning, to listen to him, to understand and find out what are their needs. So we have tools, for instance, like, surveys. We have online surveys with Monster, with Google, and we can also do more qualitative type of research, like an online focus group, even an ethnographics research. We can ask, we can create a little blog where we ask our consumers to send us pictures about how are they dealing with their day-to-day life during the lockdown, and really connect with them, but also find out what are their feelings and their situation. Of course, it's not the same if you are a B2B company or you have 3-4 major important clients, so you have your CRM, you know how to identify them. So in this case, you have the traditional channels like email, a personalized email to connect with them, to ask them what are they going through, and also SMS or WhatsApps, but even take the phone, take the telephone. If you have 3-4 clients, call them, maybe weekly, on a weekly basis, to find out what is the situation, and also to be ready to help them more on a service-oriented, like a customer service company. So this is, the typical channels we have already and the tools. And also think about that. With that, you will understand the consumer, or you should try to, monitor, analyze the consumer behavior to help you define your future strategy. Because for sure, you will need to start again on strategy, start again on marketing mix, and even build some scenarios and resegment your consumer base. Because things are changing, and we'll probably will have to resegment based much more on price sensitivity, on psychographic criteria, because the consumer is going to have to deal with the new normal. Thank you, Uchenna.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. I think the interesting thing here is that it's not about creating new channels. It's about, new ways of using the existing channels, blending offline and online channels to show that we care, to show that we are close enough, that we act on feedback that we receive, and so on and so forth. So if we move a bit more into some tools, techniques, and skill sets that would be needed to successfully engage customers during the pandemic. Prof, could you give us your take on this?
Both my two panelists has already talked a lot about these particular issues. But if you look at life these days, people are being forced to work from home. Their whole life is being forced to adopt digitally. And then the key now is to make sure that you digitize your operation by moving your brands online. That's number one. You need to make sure also you're safe and create also satisfaction once you move this particular brand online. So how do you do about these particular tools? I think the key now is to use marketing analytics. Okay, because marketing analytics is very important on what we are doing. Event marketing is also becoming a big issue, because we're all glued at home now. And so if you're using event marketing, it brings more home to the customer. Google Analytics is also a big one. And you can also, at this particular time start surveying customers. Direct mail is important. You need to make sure you get your customer. And then we can also use surveys. And then at the same time, also videos, lead generations. And then finally, loyalty program is key. Okay. You will also need to, however, help your consumers navigate all these tools I've not just mentioned, because you need to understand how to use those tools. And then in terms of sell content, is very critical at this particular period. Why is it very critical? reason why it's very critical is to make sure we add value to all interactions we're having with our customers. Vanessa also mentioned about personalized email. I think it's very important now that we use a personalized email and what we are doing now. And then also it might be a good idea to hold visual sections. Visual section is also becoming very important here. And then you need to become a trusted advisors in what we are doing these days, because customers need to trust you where you're sharing this particular information. And at the same time also you need to understand key metrics, like for example, your KPI they're going to be able to use. In a context like Nigeria, we know for sure we're discussing about this particular techniques. We're going to get consumers. Price is becoming a big issue in this particular context. And so a techniques that we might be able to use now might be dynamic pricing in that particular part of the world. Okay? And then finally, I think it's nice to integrate data at every scale. Use your AI across your entire organization, and then leverage digital effectiveness to restructure your organization.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof, for emphasizing the importance of analytics in trying to stay engaged with the customer, for giving us some of the tools we could use. But let's focus now on skill sets. Tayo, could you tell us a bit about skill sets that are required to keep customers engaged at this time?
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Uchenna. For me, there are a number of techniques and skills that you need to successfully engage customers, either at this time or post-COVID-19. The first thing I'd like to say is that anybody that wants to, any brand or any brand manager or marketing manager that wants to do this must have a creative and imaginative mind. They must be creative, they must be imaginative. Like Prof said, they must have very good data analytical skills to give their colleagues the necessary information needed to target the customers with the right messages, of course. They must also have writing, very good writing, and of course, very good editing skills to produce the right content and articles for blogs, websites, landing pages, and so on and so forth, They must also have the ability to listen. Listening is very key. I think one of my colleagues talked about listening. They must also have the ability to listen very intensely, very actively, to capture what customers are saying about their brand. They should also have mail shot skill. Although mail shot is very old, but it can still be very, very effective at this point in time. Mail shot marketing campaign. They must also have the right CRM, that's customer relationship management skill, to monitor and of course maximize customer experience. They must also have what they call the SEO and the SEM. That's the search engine optimization and search engine marketing skills with the aim of driving traffic to their websites. These are just some of the skills that I think marketing managers or brand owners or brand entrepreneurs must have in order to effectively engage customers. Thank you very much, Uchenna.
Thank you, Tayo, for giving us this succinct perspective on some of those key skills that matter so much, at this time, especially creative imagination, something that is important. But having said all this, playing the devil's advocate a bit, there are bound to be challenges and difficulties involved in doing this. And so Ogechi, maybe she could give us her perspective. What are those possible challenges that one could face with engaging customers digitally, and how can they be mitigated?
Thank you, Uchenna. I think there are three major challenges you can face, organizations can face. First of all is the challenge of identifying the proper segments. That's a big challenge, and having consumer insight. The second one is reputation management. And the third is challenges with logistics, e-commerce logistics. So I'll start with the first, proper targeting. First of all, every organization should ask what I call 5 W's and 1 H. Who are your customers? What do they buy? Why do they buy? When do they buy? Where do they buy? How do they buy? And why do they buy? Getting that, and in the digital age, the who and how would become important, because you need to know who your customers are. And knowing who your customers are in digital age and in digital marketing, we usually segment into digital immigrants and digital natives. So the digital natives are the people born after the advent, after 1980, when digital, when the world went digital. So they are 1980, and they are categorized into two: the millennials and the Gen, who are the Gen Y, and then the Gen Z. Those were born in the internet age, so they understand it. Then we have the digital immigrants, somehow needing a visa to the digital age. Those are before 1980, and you have the veterans, 1922 to 1945. You have the baby boomers, 1946 to 1946 to 1960, or 1959, 1960 to 60. Some people categorize as 60, some others do 1965. So I would say 1945 to 1965. So those are the baby boomers. And they call them baby boomers because after the war, there was a boom of baby. Then Generation S, 1965 to 1980. So we have that, those are the digital immigrants. You have to know what their needs are, what their requirements. Nigeria is we have a young population, and it's estimated that 70% of our population is below the age of 36. So that would more of the immigrants and that's more of the natives who are born after 1980. So having that, knowing that, and it's good, let's also go back to just before the crisis, now the pandemic, where the statistic we have in Nigeria. Nigeria population, digital 2020 put us as 203 million. And our internet penetration rate is 42%. That means we have about 85.6 million people online. And active user is around 27 million. So we have Nigerians are online. And what are they doing? They are the most widely used network is the WhatsApp, then we have the YouTube, we have the Instagram, we have the Facebook. And if you look at what websites too, and the most widely used the website is Google, then we have, after that, we have Bet Nigeria, so Nigerians are betting. So you have to know exactly what is happening in your general, and knowing target market will enable you know whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's Facebook. Right now, with what is happening in the pandemic, we are going into an omni-channel, which means that organizations, retail organizations, have to make use of the offline, the brick and mortar shops, and also the phones. Some are using this. So also, it depends on your target market, knowing what you should use. If your target market is, if you're showing a lot of visuals, you know that it's Instagram. So knowing that, that's the first challenge, I would think. Second challenge is the challenge of reputation management. The world is having a crash course on digital, and how do you track? The policy of reputation management is track, respond, and resolve. You have to have good mechanism for tracking. You have to have good mechanism for responding and for resolving. So you must listen. What are people saying about you before it will go viral and it will go uncontrolled? To track, most people use the easiest to use, and which is the cheapest, is Google Alerts. There's also Social Mention, there's Social Baker, there's Mention.com, there's Reputology. So there are different devices you use to track. Know what people are saying about you. Respond. Organizations also need to put in place strategies for responding to clients, because if you don't respond appropriately, you're going to escalate the issue. Who is responding? Who is in charge of your channels? Who is in charge of responding to customers? And what kind of response? Because you have to anticipate. If you're in restaurants, what kind of problem? What kind of problem would they have, and what should you respond? And then resolve the problem, because if not, you're coming back to face it. The next is the logistics associated with e-commerce. We know customers are shifting to e-commerce, organizations are shifting to e-commerce. And then you have to ask, what have you put in place? How seamless is it to make orders? How seamless is it to deliver? Because as we are moving to e-commerce, it's very important to be, affordability is going to be very important. Availability, they must have access to you, and you must be responsive. So you put those channels. Then as you're putting the channel, home delivery now, you have to also find out what possible ways would you collaborate? How would you manage home delivery? Because it's going to be very expensive. You have to think of the risk. You have to think, are you going to have a place that people will pick up, or are you just going to, and what if it gets lost in transit if you're doing delivery yourself? So right now, there should be collaboration. And the best thing for organization, especially when you're doing delivery and e-commerce, find your tribe, find similar organizations, and find out the ways you can resolve all these problems. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ogechi, giving us some of those issues and then how to look into them, starting from target market identification, managing reputations, and then distribution and channel-related issues that might lead to problems here. So managing expectations of customers is going to be even more tricky at this time. And I would like Prof to tell us a bit about managing expectations in this time and how to improve the satisfaction of customers as we move on.
Yeah, also, this is a big challenge. Number one, I want to point out that the pandemic has forced businesses to maintain and build relationship with consumers. Okay, most affected in this particular area now are new ventures and SME. When you look at this particular issue, research, education, and business indicates there are 4 key areas that we need to look at now to be able to get customer engagement. Number one is to humanize. We need to help our employers. We need to help our customers and satisfactions. If you look, there are 2 types of customers that we do have. Number one, the internal customers, and also the external customers. We need to make sure that these particular 2 customers are well engaged and well satisfied, especially when it comes to issues like health. Okay, we need to also educate change. It's important now that we educate how people are changing. We need to also make sure we assure a stability, and then we need to rationalize. This is time now that you need to give customers your heart in everything that we do. Okay, the internal customers are very important to us. Number one, their safety issues. We want to make sure that safety issues is very important. The reason why I mentioned that is like, for example, it's like somebody else, like you going on a flight. If you're going on a flight, for example, they ask you, for example, flight attendants say, number one, make sure that you put in your oxygen flight in case something going to happen to you before you try, helping others. So the next one is to make sure that these internal customers are well treated. Yeah. Then coming to the external customers, customer expectation is what your consumer expect from you, for your products, from your service, from your organizations. And so to be able to make sure we handle this particular issue effectively, I think we need to provide experience to win customer expectations, because experience and satisfaction is the key. Here, for example, in the United States, we are not driving. Everybody's locked at home these days. So what is happening right now that most insurance companies right now are basically refunding some premiums so they can be able to help insurance people. Because we're not driving, they are refunding insurance premiums. And then some also are asking you, if you come in with us, what we're gonna do, we're gonna, for example, allow you to pay 3-month premium. We won't be able to charge you. Okay? At the same time also, loyalty is important. Most hotels, for example, are providing rooms for frontline employers, okay? Companies like, for example, Pizza Huts and Domino, they're not making too much money these days. But at the same time also, they are delivering, okay? Even though we're still at home. The reason why they're not making money these days, for example, is most of the time that more people are at home, they are cooking. If you see, for example, people are eating a lot. They're buying food, are eating a lot. But at the same time also, Pizza Hut and Domino, what they're doing, for example, right now, is to maintain that particular loyalty to their customers, hoping that they're going to capture them later on. Then, something like car repair shops, most car repair shops, for example, are now, people are not bringing their cars to repair shops. So some car companies, for example, will come in to you, pick up your car, fix it, and then deliver it later in the day. So that makes good customer expectations. And also, in terms of Uzo mentioned about empathy. Empathy is very important these particular days. And so cultivating empathy and loyalty is very important. Company like, for example, Delta Airline, the airline industry are affected these days. And so what is the airline industry doing these days, for example? In order to build that particular loyalty, asking you, please, we won't charge you any amount of money if you cancel your flights. We're going to still also ask you no penalty in that particular context. And then it's very important, one of the biggest mistakes we make in the corporate world is that we don't listen. I'm glad that Uzo and also Vanessa mentioned about we must listen to our customers because customers are very important to us. And then also we need to exceed the expectations. Very important we exceed it. And then the key issue now is that we must focus on our current customers because current customers are happy customers. If you don't focus on them, they're going to pose a big challenge. And then why customers leave, about 68% of customers, for example, will leave you. And why they leave you is based on the fact that you don't care for them. That's one reason why they leave you. And so it's very time now, this is time now for us to go the extra mile to make sure our customers are happy. Make sure you provide them quality first, and then speak second. And then connect with your customers. And then finally, I think there must be 4 key issues that we need to look at here. Number 1 is to inject dynamic decision making to make sure that you manage change behaviors in your customers. And then redesign value proposition for your new reality that we're facing these days. Power all customers' experience in line with purpose. And then finally, expand connection with customers via content. Content is very important.
Thank you very much, Prof. Very profound. I think one of the key takeaways for me was what you mentioned about internal customers. We can't just be talking only about the external customers. We have to think about engaging the internal because they are at the end of the day are the ones that will serve the external ones. And they need to be safe, they need to be happy, they need to be engaged as well. So thank you for that insight. So a last aspect before we open questions to the audience is really on post-COVID strategies. And we'll just ask a few of the speakers. So how should sales and marketing practitioners prepare for after the COVID era based on insights you have on consumer behavior? So Ogechi, just in 2 minutes, give us your perspective on how they should prepare.
Well, they would prepare based on the company's strategies. So it depends on the strategy of the company. Every company will decide a strategy whether you're going to be in the same market and offer the same product. That's a market penetration strategy. Or you're going to offer the same market and a new product. That's a product development strategy. So maybe you move your product, you change the offering, you change the packaging, or you find a different product, but the same market, the same target market, the same location. Or you have the same product and take it to a different market. Say, I'm going to station, maybe I'm not going to do it I'm going to be in Lagos, so I'm going to look for another target, or even in terms of maybe I'll focus on the millennials that want it quicker, faster, or you decide your target market by the same product, or a different product and a different market, so you diversify. So this is for a time to think. There's a proverb that when the fisherman is not fishing, that they spend the time repairing. So the companies need to spend the time thinking through what will be our strategy. Once they think through, then the marketers will be agile. They have to have what I call creative adaptation. They have to create value for the customers, know what the proper channels, be able to find out which channels, be able to know what's trend within that strategy. So the strategy of the organization becomes paramount. Thank you.
Thank you. So strategic thinking is very important according to Ogechi. Vanessa, what are your thoughts in 2 minutes?
Okay, thank you, Uchenna. Just to complete what Ogechi was mentioning, I think, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important that if we need to be ready, so really prepare scenarios, positive, optimistic, and a bit more pessimistic, because as marketeers, we definitely will need to rethink our marketing strategy and our marketing mix. So if we look at what could be the insights of consumer behavior after COVID for the new normal, we have to think that recession will come. We probably will have a Naira devaluation. People will lose their jobs, or many people will lose their jobs. So our consumers will have to deal with all this. So what is interesting is that in Nigeria, we have a large amount of people with low income. So our companies are already dealing with how to sell products and services to the bottom of the pyramid segment. So we know we have these small sachets products, the single serve products for milk, for water, that are really for the daily consumption. So this is the type of products and services we will need to offer for the people that are suffering, and especially, on a more survival mode type of consumers. But we also have consumers more in the middle classes, upper classes, that will change behavior. They will stay much more at home. They will be much more price sensitive, and they will be healthy, concerned, and also risk averse because of all the pandemic that has gone through. So from a product perspective, thinking about the marketing mix, you really have to be innovative to answer those needs, but think also maybe focusing much more on your premium brands and value brands, because we know that during crisis, most of the mainstream brands decline. Consumers are focusing much more on value for money. So they are ready to pay, but they really feel that if they pay, they need to get something out of it. So from a portfolio perspective, focus on premium brands and more value brands. Again, think about being flexible about payments. Price is going to be key. Include discounts, so discounts, promotions, to make your product much more affordable and attractive. In terms of promotion, don't stop investing. We also know that from previous recessions, that companies that keep on investing are the ones that recover faster. We know it's a moment for cash. We know we have to keep, and not invest too much, but think strategically, and don't forget about your brand. Brand equity is more important than ever. And last but not least, from a place perspective, again, as Ogechi was saying, and all, so e-commerce is key, but also the traditional retail. Think that availability of your product, especially with a strong brand, is going to be key. So also focus on your route to market. Thank you, Uchenna.
Thank you, Vanessa. I think your emphasis on innovation, it's important. Innovation in two directions. So one being up the cadre, the premium segment, but also even at the lower segment, people who cannot afford to pay would still require something that speaks to what they are able to pay for. All right, finally, Prof, in 2 minutes, what's your perspective?
Okay, Uzo, number one, crisis bring change. Okay, and we look at a couple of changes that we're going to see these days. Number one, we know there's going to be a collapse of customer demand. There's going to be regulatory modification in Nigeria, and the supply chain will change. There's going to be unemployment, there's going to be increased uncertainty, and then finally, just like Vanessa mentioned, economic recessions. So what do we need to do here at this particular moment now is to use our business intelligence to be able to look at, for example, how consumers are behaving. We need to make sure also that we use what I describe as a 5R of what we need to implement these days in a developing economy like Nigeria. Number one, I think we need to focus on our enterprise, refocus on enterprise. Number two, restore brand resilience. Everybody are talking about brand. And number three, reinvent on brand experience. Brand experience is very important these days. And then reinforce result culture, and then rebuild brand trust. So many companies in the United States right now are looking at all these particular 5 R's so they can be able to make sure the consumers are highly engaged. We also need to shift from our stores to e-commerce. Everybody talk about e-commerce these days. That's very important that we need to do. And then we need to try to uncover, missed revenues. Then at the same time also, we need to adjust your product offerings to make sure we accommodate new consumer needs, just like Melissa mentioned, that we need to look at new consumer needs. And then make sure also that we need to streamline our products, our portfolios, improve what we can be able to afford, and then bolster trust, okay? These are a couple of things I feel we should be able to do at this particular moment of time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. So we'll take a few questions from the audience, and I have them in front of me. Vanessa, I think this question was a bit more directed towards you, which says, could you explain a bit more about the resegmentation that you referred to of customers and categories? Could you just say a bit more about resegmentation?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you, Uchenna. Okay, so we first, as I said, we need to understand the consumer and identify their needs. So when we do segmentation, we usually base our segmentation on data, consumer data. So we definitely need to have that information through, as I said, maybe online focus groups or through questionnaires. So once we have identified those needs, we have to, of course, take into consideration that we'll have the recession. So the price sensitivity, the income levels will be key. So resegment means that we'll probably, we are convinced that consumers will change behaviors, and their needs will change. They will be much more risk averse, etc. So to give you an example, if we were segmenting based much more on demographics, like maybe regions, gender, age, this may stay, but we have to introduce to that segmentation more need states, like maybe people that are much more concerned about health. So we may have to consider that into the segmentation. So maybe make groups of consumers that are really focusing on health. So imagine that you're like a car industry. You have to consider that when they are driving the car is clean, that you make sure that even the production, you see that everybody is properly, dressed for health issues, or if you're in a pharmacy industry, much more. So it really depends, of course, on the manufacturing or type of company you're working on. But the segmentation is based on the criteria you have collected during the questionnaires or interviews when you talk to the consumers. Thank you, Uchenna.
Thank you very much, Vanessa. So Tayo, a question, because you spoke at the beginning about content and, brand content. Here's the question for you. The aviation industry is badly hit by the pandemic. Do you think this variety of actions, like developing content that appeal to the target audience, etc., will favor any particular airline compared to others, seeing that they are all in this together? What can an individual airline do to position itself better? You need to unmute your mic.
Sorry, can you say that question again?
Okay, so the question is really, how can the content be done to achieve this positioning better? How can the content management be done to achieve positioning?
Okay, so
did you get the question?
Yeah. Yes. So essentially, with regards to content, I think the first thing you must do, especially with regards to the aviation industry, right now the aviation industry is in a mess because of what is going on. But if there is a strong desire to keep the brand running even after COVID, I think that content helps by connecting with the customers. The first thing you must do is to find out, what do you think, say for instance, first class cabin people will be interested in? What are those things that they will be interested in? So you can, by doing some sort of, online survey to find out what first class cabin people will be interested in, that will that will give you some sort of insight and direction into the sort of content you need to create. It's difficult for me to right here, right at this moment, to tell you the exact type of content. Ditto for other cabin, whether economy or premium economy. So you've got to find out what are those things that the customers find interesting. The things that the customers find mostly interesting will give you insight and direction into the sort of content to develop. But certainly content for the aviation industry right now is what would enable the industry to establish some sort of memorability, trust, confidence with the customers.
Okay, thank you, Tayo. A question which perhaps Ogechi you could address is how does a company that has a high proportion of illiterate clientele reach them through social media? What are your recommendations for using social media for people who are more less educated, we would say? You need to unmute.
Yes, thank you. So let's look at Nigeria. 70% of Nigerians can be categorized into what we call value-conscious customers. And they have, and again, also when we look at it, we have mobile connection in Nigeria. It's about 83%. And that means we have over 160 something million, or around over 150 million mobile connection. So you have to think of if they are illiterate. First of all, it depends on the product. You have to, and we call it at the bottom of bottom of the pyramid marketing. There are things very important to them: accessibility, affordability, availability. The accessibility, to get them, you have to get them through the means. You can get it in their local language, so it might be text message. You might use text. Let's not forget text message. Let's also not forget WhatsApp. Some people, as I said, when I looked at January 2020 statistics, because I'm always looking at statistics, and the figures for Nigeria, WhatsApp was very important. Get somebody that is their leader. Get somebody, and since they need accessibility, another thing they also need something like credibility. So your message must be in tune with them. Give them the message in a language they can understand. You must communicate value. Every value you create, communicate it. Don't always think it must be Facebook. That will be the channel. It doesn't have to be Facebook. It can be WhatsApp. It can be text message. But anything you do, communicate value in the language they can. So don't neglect some channels, especially in an economy like Nigeria. Thank you.
Very good. Prof,
Yes.
So there's a question about how law firms can get more clients after the pandemic. Do you have any thoughts on that? Are law firms doomed to die at this time, or is there anything they can do to get more clients? Can you unmute your mic first?
I think that law firms will die. Remember again, they are providing services. And once they're providing services, it becomes a big issue in what they're doing. So what's going to happen right now is that, again, it depends on those firms that are going to be able to survive, are those ones that actually, those clients build trust in what they've been able to be doing. And so this is time around, I think we should be able to make sure that we engage in best practices in a country like Nigeria. Number one, you need to trust, that particular lawyers that are going to be able to represent you. This is also time that most companies, for example, especially in terms of, depending on where you're looking at, in terms of supply chain, in terms of, for example, on consumer goods, in terms of, for example, it depends on what you're trying to do in that particular contents. But I don't think law firms are going to be able to die because law firms are bound to represent the interests of their clients. So it depends on what they're trying to achieve. If it's, for example, in consumer goods, right now, if it's, for example, consumer goods, remember again that most countries right now are thinking about reinventing the supply chain. Now we are thinking about localization rather than globalization. So most likely it's going to be a big issue these days. So I don't think law firm will die. It depends on the type of client they're trying to represent in the business line.
Thank you so much, Prof. And then Tayo, there's somebody concerned here asking what suggestions do you have for handling high-profile customers in the area of loyalty and referrals? So I'm imagining these are, high-end, high-net-worth individuals. How do you stay engaged with them in this type of period? Unmute first.
Sorry about that. I think the first thing you must do with this is very broad. I don't know the industry this person is talking about, but essentially, what high net worth customers are looking for right now is trust. They got to be able to trust you. If you have not built your brand solidly on trust and professionalism, pre-COVID, such a firm at this point in time will struggle. At this point in time, such a firm, such a brand will struggle. So my advice is, if you want to keep your customers, especially high net worth customers, doing business in Nigeria is about relationship. So, and very sound relationship is built on professionalism, trust. So your customers, your high net worth customers must be able to trust you. If you're in the banking sector, for instance, the banking sector relies heavily on trust. So if you're in the banking sector, if your brand has been built solidly on trust, that I can keep my money with you and go to sleep, I think such an organization will do very well post-COVID. And, for other organizations that have not, that have not spent enough resources expressing and creating visibility around trust, I think that post-COVID will be the best time to do so.
Thank you so much, Tayo. Succinct. So I would say last question. Vanessa, I think this might be a good one for you to take a shot at. So this person says, how would an event management company manage customers digitally and ensure that they come back after COVID? Because now they are not thinking of coming to any events. What are your thoughts?
Well, I have to say that it's a very difficult moment for them. I recognize that we are all at home and not able to go to events, and even maybe after the lockdown, for some regulations, most of the events may be not allowed yet. So I think they have to keep connected with their consumers and their clients. So if they have the chance to have a database, just continue connecting. If they have a Facebook, something that helps them keep on communicating with their clients. So as Tayo was mentioning at the beginning, it's about experience, about making sure that your consumers and your clients are still happy when they connect with you. So of course they won't be able to be physically with you during an event, but you can send them the event, a link of a previous event that they can see for free, for instance, especially if it's in your database. Maybe they couldn't go to that event that day, but then they see it for free. Imagine it's a concert. So there are many companies now that are giving for free events, concerts, opera, ballet, anything that you are selling now. So give them additional service, that you create this loyalty to make sure that once all this is over, the first ones to come to your event are the loyal customers, the ones you have keep that loyalty. For sure, during this time, maybe you can offer some small services paying, but I think the best is that you offer it for free at the moment to construct that loyalty and to motivate them, because those events alive are much better. So to motivate them to come in the future.
Thank you, Vanessa. All right, so before I officially close today's panel session, we'll just like each of the panelists to just say, you know, his or her closing statement, just in less than 1 minute. What is your advice to the people? So we'll start with Tayo, your parting message in less than 1 minute.
Okay, so like I said before, if you are engaging with the customer, you must think, you must, distill this issue of customer engagement into connection. So the question is, how do you want to connect? I'll advise that you connect by creating content. I'll advise that you connect by by demonstrating empathy, by humanizing your brand. I'll advise that you connect by offering very good solutions to the product challenges of your customers. I'll advise you connect by ensuring that you are imaginative, highly imaginative. I'll advise connect by ensuring that you have data analytical skills. These are just some of the things that you need to do in order to successfully connect at this point in time and even post-COVID. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Tayo. Ogechi, your last words to the audience. Unmute.
Yes, I want you to think of your strategy post-COVID. Look at your business, look at your capabilities, look at your strength and your weakness. Ask yourself, what would I do? How what do I do with my product or my service? Is there anything I can substitute? Look at what you have. Is there anything I can combine? Is there any product I can adjust or adapt, or any service? Is there anything I can modify? Because people will not really have money at this time. Is there any product or service I can put to another use? Maybe you have a bus, it can be delivery, or is there anything I can eliminate from my process that will make it easier or cheaper? But you must create value. Is there anything I can reverse or anything? So you have to strategic. Hope is not a strategy. Strategy is your conscious and deliberate process. So take this time, repair your net, and make good success out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Prof, a few words.
I think customer value is important these days. And in order to be able to increase on that particular customer value, I think companies these days need to power up their innovation engine and then spend more money on R&D. Yeah? Because that's basically how you're going to be able to get things going these days. And if you recall, I mentioned that organization right now need to focus on 5 R's. And those 5 R's are very, very important on what we are doing today. I see number 1, refocus on your enterprise. Number 2, restore brand relevance. And then reinvent brand experience. Because experience is the best key to everything that we do today. And then reinforce your result culture and rebuild on your brand trust. Then how do we find solution to this? The only way to find solution to this is to use business intelligence. And then make sure we have what we call an executable action plan, sustainable program, and then be very proactive in your culture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Prof. Vanessa, your final comments.
Thank you, Uchenna. I would say that as we have gone through the whole session, everything starts with the consumer and it finishes with the consumer. So really focus, we have to be as consumer-centric as possible, listen to the consumer, understand him, analyze what he's saying to you, to really planify and develop the strategies that Ogechi is mentioning. And again, don't forget about being a responsible company. The consumer is observing you, so really be responsible, do local sourcing. So everything that helps you, construct your community. You are part of the community as a company. So this is very important also. And last but not least, innovation. I think today we have to be much, as innovative as possible. So all our teams have to be focused on innovation. create smaller teams that are very fast, that are speed, no bureaucracy, and like this, we're going to be as creative as possible and answer those consumer needs.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think for me it's been, and for all of us, the panelists as well, it's been a wonderful time. I would like to thank the panel members very much for giving us wonderful insights and for all the effort they put into making this possible and for keeping to time, which is highly commendable. I'd also like to thank our audience of over 2,000 people who have stayed on with us throughout this event. And please keep in touch with Lagos Business School. Expect more. We'll stay in touch with you. We'll try to practice what we preach in terms of staying engaged with our customers. So from us here, a big thank you, and we hope to see you another time. Have a nice day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.